All right. Welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Conversations, brought to you by Dream Big Sports, where we have dope conversations with people in the sports industry about how they can innovate, and we bring on different platforms, different brands, different professionals, so they can talk about their brands and how we can help the brands of our listeners. Today we have a great episode with JQ from JQ Sports PR. So let everybody get in. We'll get started. There we go. Everybody, make sure they send this to about 3-4 people. Just we want to make sure we get our athletes in, and get them this good information. So make sure y'all send it, especially for today for young athletes. We want to make sure that they're getting the information. So, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me good?
I can. I can. How are you?
Great. I'm great. I'm great. So I'm excited about this conversation. Definitely want to start off with thanking you for joining and taking the time to come on and have this conversation.
Yeah,
So
you're
welcome.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Definitely, love your content online. And for those who don't follow JQ, make sure you all go click the follow button. We want to make sure that, you can, if you have an athlete that you know or a brand that you know, make sure you're getting that information, because she definitely does a great job of creating content that people
Thank
can
you.
relate to, and makes it easier for them to understand. So make sure you all follow her. I will let you introduce yourself, but JQ is a professional sports PR manager. She helps athletes create and build their brand. Especially the high school athletes and their families. Helps them with the recruiting process. So introduce yourself, tell them about your background, and we'll get started.
Yeah. So, as what you said, I'm a sports PR manager. I go by JQ. That's my marketing name. I'm actually a former college basketball athlete. I played on the Division I, JUCO, and Division II level.
Okay.
After I graduated from St. Andrews in Lawrenceburg, North Carolina, I went straight into grad school because I didn't want to pursue basketball anymore. I had an opportunity to play overseas, but chose to go a different route. So I went to Liberty, did my 2 years, and while I was at Liberty, I interned for the Liberty football program as their marketing assistant intern. And I also coach at a local high school in Lynchburg for the girls JV basketball team. And I also helped out with a semi-men's basketball called the Lynchburg Legends. So I did a lot, stayed very active because I knew I wanted to stay in sports, but I didn't know what that
Right.
looked like. So after I graduated from Liberty, moved back to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I, dang, what am I gonna do now? I'm out of school because that's all I knew was school and ball. I didn't want to think about
Right.
getting no job. So I said, well, let me find something that pertains to basketball. So what I did, I purchased this cheap camera. It got the job done. And I was attending all of the elite, shoe circuit programs,
Right.
the Nike EYBL, the Adidas, McDonald's All American. I mean,
Hmm.
the list goes on and on. And what I would do at these tournaments was I was on the sideline doing some highlight filming and also interviewing athletes. At the time, there was hardly any females on the sideline doing what I was doing. So
Gotcha.
everybody looked at me. I would walk in there like with a dress sometimes, not like a fancy dress, but just
Right.
like a casual dress. And they'd be looking at me like, who is she? What is she doing on the sideline?
Right.
Because most people when they see me, they don't think that I'm a former basketball player. So I did that for a couple of years, but being a student athlete, I was seeing so much stuff that was going on behind the scenes to where it was like, okay, I feel like I can offer more than just doing interviews and highlight films because honestly, I knew I didn't want to do that for the rest of my career. I
Right.
just knew that was my way to get my foot in the door
Right.
and build the relationships with these kids that are now in the NBA and their families. So that's when I transitioned to being, behind the camera as a sports PR manager. So JQ Sports PR is my baby. That's my brand. That's my business. As you mentioned earlier, I work with high school athletes, college and professional athletes, and I also work with athletic brands with their branding and marketing too.
Gotcha. So tell me about some of the. I know you were kind of mentioning some of the athletes that you have worked with in the past. Can you tell some of the people?
Yeah. So when I was doing the interviews at the different events that I had mentioned earlier, I had an opportunity to build a really good relationship with Bam Adebayo that now plays with the Miami Heat. He's out of
Right.
North Carolina.
Right.
Also Dennis Smith Jr. out of North Carolina as well. De'Aaron Fox, that's with the Sacramento Kings.
Yep.
Miles Bridges, Lord Jesus, phenomenal player.
Right. Right.
We know what's going on with his situation, but
Right.
I had an opportunity to interview him at the NBA Top 100
Okay.
back in 2016. I was able to work with those athletes, with the media training. And then I also helped a football player out of the Atlanta Falcons with his event, with his nonprofit charity event here in Atlanta, Georgia, a couple of years ago. I worked with a lot of people,
Yep.
a lot of athletic brands, and I'm just very, grateful that I was able to work with these young men
Yep.
that are very talented and really good people.
And so, what were some of the things that stuck out to you when you were, working with some of these athletes?
Well, like I said, as I was, conducting interviews, there would be times where I would ask these guys questions and they wouldn't know how to respond to these questions. So that's what gave me the green light to think, okay, I could do more than just, give interviews, maybe some
Mhm.
media training.
Right.
So that was one of the things that I did notice is that they wasn't getting any proper media training when it was time to do media interviews and just interacting with different people. I also noticed with the families is that even to this day, kids jump around from AAU team to AAU team. So being able to give, families some insight on how to maneuver and how to navigate through this crazy sports world,
Right.
just noticing things like that, I knew that I could give some great insight, some inspiration and some education to these young kids and families.
Gotcha. So, what is your point of view on, the AAU team hopping and all of that? Like, what as a PR, like, how do you feel they should maneuver?
That is a great question. So honestly, we all know that sports is a political world.
Hmm.
Like every industry, there's politics involved. When
Hmm.
it comes to AAU, I think it starts with the parents doing their research, doing their homework. I've talked to a couple of parents where I would tell them, "Hey, before you put your kid on this team, go and scout them out. Sit in one of their practices, or if you guys are at a tournament and there's a specific team that you're interested in having your son or your daughter to play with, go over and watch them play. Pay attention to the parents as well, the coaches." So I feel that every kid situation is different,
Yep.
but I'm really keen and big on parents getting more involved in their child's recruiting process.
Yep.
Short story. I'm the oldest of three girls, and I was the first one to. I had it the hardest, so I was the oldest that went off to college. And my parents, neither one of them went to college. They played high school sports, but they didn't know anything about the recruiting process.
Right.
So they kind of had to educate themselves, and they made some mistakes, bumped their heads, during the road or whatnot. And when I look back on that, that's what gives me the passion and the push and the drive to educate these parents. Now, don't get me wrong, just because you are involved, you get involved with your child's recruiting doesn't mean it's going to be easier.
Right.
But I feel like as a parent, they need to step forward and help their child and guide their child throughout the process. And along with getting some outside opinions and things like that. But the AAU has become very political. I mean, social media doesn't help at all either. And the just being inside of what's going on, I hear so many
Yeah.
stories and I cringe.
Right.
I hear parents that say, "Yeah, I went to this AAU team because the coach is promising my son playing time." I mean, of course, the coach is going to tell you that. Shit, college coaches would tell these kids that,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's just really doing your research and educating yourselves on how this game is ran because it's a doggy dog world out here.
Right.
And I just, honestly, like I said, just having parents getting involved in their child's recruiting and just, like I said, every kid situation is different. Just because you play on a shoe circuit doesn't mean you're going to get recruited because
Right.
there are some awesome independent programs out here that are getting these kids to the next level.
Yeah, and so and that's what I was gonna ask you about. Like, I think a lot of them jump to the names and they go to the
Hmm.
name. It might not be the best situation for them, right? So,
Hmm.
differentiating the opportunity from the names and the what's gonna look good on social media. I think that's probably a really big thing that they have to navigate right now.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's it's very political. These AAU teams, they have to, portray themselves on social media that they're the best AAU program in the nation. I'm not against that because again, I come from a branding marketing standpoint, so that's what you're supposed to do. But again, it just takes the kids and the parents really doing their research and scouting out these different teams. Ask these coaches what type of network do you have.
Right.
Sadly, I've heard that there are a couple of AAU programs here in the U.S. that have coaches that don't have any connections on the collegiate level. And I don't care if it's JUCO coaches. I don't care if
Right.
it's D3. Your coaching staff, just my personal opinion, and I would love to hear from you what your thoughts are on this. But I feel that when these coaches or these directors of these AAU programs start scouting these different coaches, you need to make it mandatory that they build a relationship with college coaches.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, that's what the ultimate goal is to get these kids to the next level. What's your thoughts on that? Do
No,
you do you agree?
I 1000% agree because even, like you, and I think you made a good point. Like it doesn't matter if it's high major Power Five conferences or if it's JUCO, whatever your level has, I think they should have that relationship with that. That like you just said, it may be a private AAU team.
Hmm.
If you're private and you're kind of small, then you should have the best JUCO relationships around because everybody on your team isn't going D1. And I think that's what the biggest misconception is that a lot of these kids are going to these programs and they're only looking for D1. They're only looking for Power Five. They're only looking for this. But all those situations may not be the best fit for you. So if I'm a smaller AAU program, maybe I'm not there yet, but I do
Hmm.
have relationships that I can get you at this JUCO. I can get you at this D2. I can get you at this HBCU. Like,
Hmm.
actually that's a niche that some AAU programs should probably try to go into. I'm not trying to go for this power grab, and I may want to go and I'm going to be the best HBCU AAU program there is. I have a relationship with all these great HBCU programs,
Hmm.
or maybe I can find you a great D2 school. But everybody wants to go and grab. Oh, well, I can get you to a D1.
So I'm one of them. So so like I said earlier, I worked myself backwards. I started out of high school going to a Division 1,
Mm-hmm.
JUCO, and then Division 2. I'm a very transparent individual, and you can tell in my social media content that I put on social media. I try to educate people based on the experiences that I've been through.
Yep.
So there's a video, a reel that I had created, and I listed the mistakes that I had made as a college athlete. And when I was in high school, that's all people talked about was who's going D1.
Right.
Oh, you don't need to consider going to JUCO. JUCO are for bad kids or
Right.
kids that don't have the grades. I
Yep.
wasn't a bad kid. I had great grades, but I'm listening to everybody else saying, Jake, Jaquez, you're too talented to go to a JUCO or Division 2. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I'm only considering D1. So it all boiled down to, I will never forget this. It was between Maryland Eastern Shore, they're the MEAC conference,
Mm-hmm.
and Montana State. Those were the last two schools that I had narrowed my decision to, or my choices to. And my parents had different opinions,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided to go to Maryland Eastern Shore. It didn't work out. Found myself, entering the transfer portal. Went to a JUCO in Texas. Did my thing. I had the opportunity to play at Louisville or North Texas, but I didn't want to go to summer school because I fell in love with this guy at the time and failed two classes. So I said, I'm not going to summer school. I've never done summer school before. So I had to go to a Division II school. But I look back now and I said, I wish I would have really, analyzed the situation and did what was best for me instead
Mhm.
of what everybody else was telling me. So I tell kids all the time, do
Yep.
what's best for you. Go to a program that you can make an impact, not because you can walk around campus or brag to your friends, hey, I go to
Right
this
back home.
school, and you're probably sitting the bench anyway.
Right.
So
Yep, and so actually in the comments, my friend John J. Jefferson, he is a product of junior college. He's currently still playing in probably over a 10 years career overseas. Like there is a way. I'm a JUCO product.
mhm,
There is a way to get to where you want to go. From JUCO to from D1, D2, whatever it may be. But like you just said, you have to make the best decision for yourself.
yeah, and I think again, going back to what I said earlier about parents, you
Yep.
know, parents, your one of your roles is to guide your kid or guide your children and to, pushing them in the direction that what's, well, not what they know, but what you guys combined know what's best for you. Um, so yeah, I just wish that people would stop instilling in these kids that Division I is the only route, because it's not.
Yep.
You, even if you do go Division I, you don't have to go to the Power 5 schools. You can
Yep.
go to a mid-tier, low-tier Division I school and still get to the next level, whether that's playing overseas or playing the NBA.
Yep. And it's all about situation. So like I think the transparency
Yeah.
of that is what separates it, because like you'll have these schools that will feed these kids and sell them dreams on what they can do versus, okay, hey, this is what it is, this is the right situation for you, and really listening to the people that have your best interest.
I want to point out something that FFTV magazine said. Not really. What did he say? Not really though, because you won't get the looks. Again, it depends on the person's talent and what their goal is. Um, who's to say you can't go to a mid-tier Division I school and then, play there for a year or two and then transfer? I'm pretty sure you've heard how crazy the transfer portal is right now.
Correct.
There's so many kids. And sadly that hurts the high school,
Yep.
kids coming out, because a college coach would rather have, a more developed player either come out
Correct.
of JUCO or, lateral division, a mid or low Division I school, before they pick up a high school kid. So it just really depends on the individual.
Yep, I was literally talking to my friend. He was here in Atlanta. He coaches for the University of Denver, in Colorado, and he was here coaching. We were talking about the transfer portal and how that affects their recruiting right now, because
Mm-hmm.
they're recruiting the high school guys, but they have to navigate their kids that are going to leave from their transfer portal. They're gonna lose some, and then
Mm-hmm.
then they have to gain some that are ready to play. Because if you're talking about this high school kid and he's not ready, then you're at a disadvantage, because now I'm losing people, and I have to pay attention to the transfer portal and find out what's the best talent for me to stay and win, because these college coaches are under a lot of pressure. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's very important for them to be able to bring in talent, and bring in talent that's going to be able to play right away.
And I think too, I had posted something the other day about what kind of questions should high school athletes high school athletes should ask college coaches, because during this interview process, it's not just, you need to also be doing the interviewing too. You need to ask these questions, like ask the coach, how long have you been here? I mean, of course, we know things are not guaranteed and coaches move around a
Right.
lot, but asking those questions during the recruiting process so you can choose the best fit for you. Asking the coach again, how long have you been here? What type of player are you looking for? Where do I sit on your recruiting list? I
Mhm.
feel like if you ask those questions beforehand, it can possibly cut down on how many kids are in the transfer portal.
Right, right. And yeah, like so making sure that you're asking those questions like you said as a parent because the kids aren't going to ask the right questions. So like for example, your job as their consultant, their person, their go-to person is to help educate them on okay, these are the questions to ask. These are the questions that are going to get you to the right answer because a lot of times if you're asked if as a parent you are asking those same types of glitzy glamour questions, then you're not going to get to the real meat and potatoes to find out if that school is the right fit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like you said, that is something that I coach the parents and the kids on is, let's do some role playing before you guys go up for your visits. These are a list of questions that parents should ask, and
Right.
these are questions that the student athlete should ask. But at the same time, I tell parents you don't want to overbear, or over control the interview because you should allow your kid to speak. But at the same time, you being there, being able to ask those hard-nosed, difficult questions, because coaches, to be honest, I'm gonna keep it real with you. A lot of coaches are not expecting these parents to ask those type of questions,
Gotcha.
uh, which that's a whole different topic. But I do feel that when these kids really take the time to research these schools that they're interested in and starting early,
Hmm.
starting at the freshman level. I just sent my client, Jackson Sutherland. He's a sophomore, upcoming sophomore at Christ the King in New York. And I just sent him and his parents last night a checklist, a sophomore checklist for him to, get going on. And what some of the things that, I have put in that email was getting with your guidance counselor,
Gotcha.
making sure that you're on the right path to graduating on time, and cross-referencing those core classes that the NCAA requires because it's been a while since I've been in a high school, school or whatnot. So I don't know if the guidance counselors have gotten better over the years, but I know when I was back in high school, these folks didn't care. Like you had to stay on top of them. And I understand they have a lot of students to oversee, but that goes back to these high school kids taking control of their recruiting
Right.
process. So you making that a initiative of scheduling a meeting with your guidance counselor and asking them, okay, look, I'm going into my sophomore year. These are the NCAA courses that I need to be able to graduate on time.
All right.
Are we on the right path?
Yep.
Also, having a conversation with your high school coach. You
Right.
know, the coach, doesn't know if you're really trying to get to the next level. So you have to have that conversation even before the season starts. So that way you're setting that expectation. Okay, coach, this is what I'm looking to do. I'm not sure how I fit into the system just yet, but just know that I'm gonna put in the work that I need to put in so I can get to the next level and also get some scholarships. And then also asking the coach, what is your network? Can you help me with the recruiting efforts? That goes back to our point earlier about these coaches. I feel like it's their duty to build these relationships with the collegiate coaches. So just having that checklist and being proactive, I think that's where we fall through the wayside is that we're being more proactive. We're not being proactive. We're more reactive. We react instead of proacting and making sure that we're ahead of the game.
Gotcha. I do have a, well, let me see if somebody else had a question. How can a guidance counselor know what an athlete should do? Well, and I'll let you answer it a little bit, but that's going to go down to the NCAA clearinghouse requirements. Those are
Mm-hmm.
those that they can find that very easily, or the parent can find that very easily. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's public information.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. The guidance counselor, they should know what the requirements are and the rules and the policy of the NCAA Eligibility Center, what the student athlete needs. Again, that comes with them doing their research. And, I don't expect everyone to know shoot, I don't even know all of the details, but
Oh,
as a guidance counselor, you should, that is the role that you're in is to guide these student athletes to making sure that they graduate on time.
right, right. Yep. So I did have a question because I know this. I know you probably ran into this a lot. So how do you navigate? I know a lot of these kids have quote unquote handlers, right? But
Hmm.
how do you navigate that process? Because and you'll see it a lot when there isn't a their parent isn't present per se in the household, so they'll have a handler. So how do you navigate that? Because you're like what you do is basically what to help that parent navigate that process, but I would think that a handler isn't necessarily that welcoming into bringing you in, or have you seen that?
So this is what I would say. One of my requirements is a consultation. Of course, kids being in high school, they're not able to compensate me for my services because I
Right.
do charge for that.
Right.
Um, so the first thing I do is have a consultation, and during that consultation, I speak both with the parent and the athlete because
Yep.
I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I can I can tell if an athlete or a parent is pushing their kid or they're living through their kid after having, a couple of conversations and text messages and things like that. So that's my main requirement is that the parents have to be involved.
Gotcha.
At least one.
Right.
I have to have a parent involved because again, that goes back to one of the emphasis that one of the points that I emphasize in my business is that I want parents to get back involved in their child's recruiting. So if they're not involved in their child's recruitment in their life, I don't think this is going to work because at the end of the day, of course, I want to be paid for my time and my expertise, but I really want to help these kids and their families, making sure that they're staying ahead of the game and preparing what's life after sports. And if they don't have at least one parent involved, we're
Gotcha.
just not a good fit for each other.
Gotcha. And so let's go through some of that. Like I know you said the first step is consultation. Well, what are the after the consultation? What are your services, and what do you like specifically? Like, what do you provide for them?
Yeah, so during the consultation, we I pretty much get an idea of what they're looking for because not every athlete needs the same service. So I might have an athlete and a parent that just needs help with their social media.
Mhm.
Because I just mentioned this the other day in one of the panels that I was in here in Atlanta, is that recruiting has changed over the years to where it's no longer just emails and sending in videotapes, right? You have to be active on social media. You have to put yourself out there on social media. So a kid may have a lot of content, but they don't know how to go about strategizing on how to put that on social media so they can get that exposure that they need from media, journalists, scouts, and college coaches. And then you might just have a parent that needs some assistance with the recruiting process. They don't know where to start. And
Right.
it's so much information and resources out there to where it can be overwhelming. So having that one-stop shop, which is what JQ Sports PR provides, it just makes it a little bit easier to retain and follow. So once we're on the call, we speak, we discuss on what they're looking for. What I offer is, different packages based off their budget. Because I do realize that especially single parents, their, funds may be different from someone that's, a child that has both parents in the household that makes good
Right.
money. So I base my packages based off what their budget is.
Hmm.
And then I create what's called a service agreement, which is the same thing as a contract. I just don't
Right.
like using that term because sometimes it can be a little off-putting or
Right.
intimidating. So I
Right.
use the term service agreement because it sounds a little bit softer. So we
Right.
go over that in detail, and then I allow them to choose, if you want to work 4 months, 4 months is the minimum, 4 months, 6 months, or a year.
Right.
And then we just go through that. We have check-in calls once every 2 weeks. Um, I'm staying on top of the parents and the kid, just making sure, hey, have you guys done this? Hey, here's a tournament that I think will be good for you guys to be a part of.
Mhm.
I can send off your article to one of the journalists that I know here in Atlanta or in New York. So just making sure that I'm holding everyone accountable because again, yes, you hire me to help, but I'm not here to do all the work. I need you guys to help out as well. So
Right. No, that makes sense. So are you because I know when I was coming up, it was more so like rivals and yeah, towards the end ESPN got a little bit more with the rankings and things of that nature. Is it still that the articles are what they are seeking to help get ranked and get noticed, or what does it look like now?
So, of course, having your article featured on ESPN or Rivals does help. But one of the things that I tell the athlete and the journalist or whoever I'm working with is to make sure that it's also placed on your social media.
Mhm.
Again, college coaches are spending a lot of time on social media, more so on Twitter than Instagram. So, you have all of the media journalists, all the scouts, they're every day, every second on Twitter. So
Okay.
yeah, it's great that you're posting it on your guys' website, but I need it on on Twitter as
Right.
well.
Right.
So just having their articles featured, if a client or a potential client has a great game and they had this mean dunk, I try to make sure that overtime gets it, all of the independent
Hmm.
media highlight companies get it, so that way they can place that on their social media because they're also needing those followers
Right.
and those views too. So
Right.
it works hand in hand.
Right.
But no, to answer your question, article features definitely helps and benefits the kids recruiting exposure, but one of the things that I like to make sure of is placing it on their social media platforms as well. And then what I also do is once that media journalist has placed that on their website or their social media, I have my client to grab that content
Hmm.
and whatever coach that they have a good relationship with, college coach they have a good relationship with, send it to them via DM.
Gotcha. That's a great strategy.
Because college coaches, like I said, they're on social media every day. Like they have a lot going on. So if you just send that simple DM, hey coach, this is such and such. Here's a clip I was featured on, rivals.com today.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Hmm.
That makes sense. So a couple more things before we get out of here. I want to make sure that I highlight, with you being in public relations and with, women's sports, making sure that it's getting more and more to the forefront and it's being on the rise. What advice do you give to that young lady that is trying to make sure that she's building the best brand that she can to get recruited?
As a student athlete,
Yes.
putting yourself out there on social media, finding what else is your passion outside your sport, whether that's modeling, cooking, makeup,
Yeah.
hair, whatever that passion is, incorporate that into your social media strategy. And the reason why I say that is because I was just reading an article the other night. One of the gymnasts out of LSU has 1.9 million followers, and she just signed a NIL deal with a modeling
Yep.
agency. So you have to put yourself out there and don't be afraid of what other people would say
Right.
and coaches, because I would also say this. I've had coaches to personally DM me and text me and say, why are you pushing these kids to build a personal brand? They need to be focusing on the sport that they're playing. And my rebuttal to that is, aren't we all supposed to be helping this kid
The
for
kid.
their life for life after sports? Not everybody gets the opportunity to play at the next level. So why is it looked down upon if this kid is trying to build a brand for their future?
Yep.
Because if this kid wants to be a business owner of a clothing apparel line, why is that a problem?
Right.
Now, it's all about balance,
That was
okay?
just.
Because I get it. I get it. These kids, they're not mature enough to know how to, but as a coach, because you're not only there to coach them the X's and O's, but
Hmm.
you're supposed to teach them about life
Yep.
and knowing how to balance time management, representing yourself in a positive light. That's what a coach is supposed to do.
Yep.
So it makes me so upset, honestly, when I hear a coach that says, "Oh, these kids don't need to be worrying about building a brand. What they build a brand for? They need to focus on the sport that they're
Right.
playing." Really?
because
Okay.
to a certain extent, it's and it may not be for everyone, but it's them wanting to use them for what they can use them for, and then when it's over, it's over. Because
Mm-hmm.
it, literally, my last episode was about that. Understanding leverage versus compensation when we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
IL space, right? You
Mm-hmm.
use NIL to get compensated, or you can use it as leverage to be able to build your own personal brand. And now, whatever you do for the rest of your life, you have already built that. You've learned how to do these things off the court. And to your point, it's about balance because if you're doing everything that you need to do on the court, on the field, whatever your sport is, you're putting in your time, then you're not doing anything other than showing people what you enjoy. If it's what you already are, you like. If they're gonna be there, it's not like they're not gonna be on social media. So
Right.
if what you're doing is you're teaching them to use their social media to build their personal brand, therefore
Mm-hmm.
they have something to code. They always tell them, hey, have something to fall back on. Now they
Yep.
created their own thing that they have to fall back on versus, oh, I need to get this degree to quote unquote fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
You've taught them how to fish versus giving them something to actually move forward with that they after 4 years is over.
Yep. And I like the point that you just made about the NIL is not for everybody as far as compensation, but you
Yep.
also have to use that as leverage.
Yep.
And I get it. You may not be the top star, top athlete on your team, but that doesn't mean that you don't take advantage of the NIL deal, right? Because you want to, again, you want to have something to fall back on. And so going back to your question, what can a young female that's in sports do to put themselves out there is don't be afraid to promote yourself on social media. You see a lot of WNBA players now that are getting deals, endorsement deals because they're broadcasting themselves outside of their sport.
Yep. And I think that's huge because like you just said, brands will latch on to you because of your interests versus what you quote unquote like. And like you just said, they may not be the star of the team, but they may have the most personality on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about marketing and everything from that standpoint, it's about the personality. If
Mm-hmm.
I can market you and I can brand you, regardless if you're scoring 30 points or 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
I if you have personality, then as a brand and you like my product or you like a product similar to mine, then I can have some synergy with you and attach my brand to you. So
I love your point about personality. And the reason why is because people relate to people.
yep,
So if you have the personality to where you can get people to trust you, brands are going to notice that. And so what they want is they want a brand ambassador, they want a representative that's going to promote their product and be able to bring in their audience
yep,
because now they have gained some sort of trust.
yep,
And, brands are very strategic. They know exactly who they're going out for,
yep,
right? So, again, going back to your point, you have to show your personality. You have to put yourselves out there on social media because these brands are watching.
yep,
They're definitely watching. It's supposed to be a win-win situation for both parties.
yep,
So if you don't have to have thousands of, tens of thousands of followers. You can have a little bit under 10K, but you have the engagement. And that's another perception that most people get misconstrued is that, oh, I have 10K followers, but their engagement ratio is very low.
yep,
Like brands can tell that, you may have, 10K followers, but you're only getting two comments on
right,
each post, you know, 70 views, yeah, something ain't adding up. So
thank,
they're gonna definitely dig into, okay, is this person really what we're looking for to promote our brand and our service?
right. They're gonna dive into the analytics. Like
Mm-hmm.
going to spend money, if they're going to put their dollars in it, then they have to have the analytics and the numbers to back it up, right? So, like you just said,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things are important when they are pitching themselves to these brands or
Yeah.
or do or trying to go out and do these brand partnership deals, and that goes to the flip side of understanding your value, right? So if I am this this person who has this following and I do have engagement, now I understand my value. My value isn't what I did on the court. My value is what, in this sense, my value is what I bring to this space of my personality and my brand.
Because your followers or your fans may not know you as a student athlete.
Right.
They might not know you as a professional athlete. What they know is, oh, this person loves to cook just like I do.
Yes.
I can care less how many points they scored in the
Yep.
game, but because we share a common interest, now I'm considered as a fan.
It's connection.
Connection, exactly. And then to speak on that, I would love if student athletes could please take the time on finding strategic brand collaborations. When an
Yes.
NIL first rolled out, I saw so many athletes, post on their Instagram and their Twitter, now open for NIL deals. No, you need to first build a brand. That's the most important thing. A
Yep.
brand, a company is not going to reach out to you if you do not have a brand.
Yep.
So take this time to build a personal brand, hire somebody so we can
Right.
manage that,
Right.
and then find opportunities for you to get paid off your name, image, and likeness.
Yep. No, I think that's definitely good feedback for these because it's the first year just passed, and I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them are it's been the quote unquote wild wild west. It's not everybody, nobody knew what was actually going on, but I think companies like yourself and making sure that they understand how to navigate and
Mm-hmm.
what to do and not to get lost, because I think companies that like you will be the ones that they need, because you don't want the coach's concern of getting lost in building the personal brand. If you actually invest in yourself and hire people to do what you need to get done, that's
Mm-hmm.
where you don't get lost in, well, I'm worried about building my personal brand. No, I have
Mm-hmm.
somebody going to help me build my personal brand. So that's where it
Mm-hmm.
comes in. Hey, let's invest back into, because you're a business, as an athlete
Right.
business. Let's invest back into this business and let me allow somebody to run this for me.
And one of the things that I like to stress to potential clients is that I'm not an agent. I'm not an agent. I
Right.
don't get involved in any financial negotiations.
Right.
I'm here to be the middleman between your brand and the public.
Correct.
And a lot of parents ask, "Are
Don't.
you an agent?"
Yeah.
No, please don't say that. Like, no, I am not an agent. I am your brand manager. I am that person. If someone or if a company reaches out to you and say, "Hey, we would love for you to be our brand ambassador for our product or our service," what I would like for the athlete to do is, okay, let me call up my brand manager, my PR manager, JQ, so she can make sure that I have creative control. Because that's another thing, is
Gotcha.
that you want to make sure that whoever you work with, you have control of what your brand, how your brand is portrayed to
Right.
the public. Because the brand or the company might have an idea of what they want you to be, but if you've already gained that community of people that know you, and then they
Right.
see you marketing this brand, they're like, oh, that ain't JQ. That ain't, she's just doing this for the money.
Right.
People gonna start going the other way.
And you talked about it earlier, but like the followers trust you, so you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to lose their trust by marketing or attaching yourself to something that doesn't speak to who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I definitely agree. But I know we're coming up on our time, and I definitely want to allow you some time to get some closing remarks, just about where people can find you, what's next for you, and just close us out.
Yeah, so you can follow me on JQ Sports PR, obviously here on Instagram and Twitter. You can also reach me via my website, JQ Sports PR. I have a questionnaire or a form that parents and student athletes can fill out. And yeah, I think when you come across that time in your recruiting journey where you feel that you need a PR manager, to really understand what comes with that. Like I'm not going to tell you, oh yeah, you're definitely going to be elite D1 athlete tomorrow. No, it's a process. So understanding that building a personal brand is a process. Things doesn't happen overnight. You have to put in the work. And I'm that type of PR manager that's going to hold you accountable. And I'm not, like I said before, I'm a college athlete. I was just telling somebody the other day, if a client calls me up and say, hey, JQ, my trainer, has something to come up. I need somebody to come to the gym and rebound for me. You best believe I'm going to be there, because that's the type of relationship that I like to have with the athlete and the parents, is that no, I'm just not handling your brand, but I also want to be there as a friend, or somebody that you can
Right.
ask questions and get an honest opinion, whether you like it or not, because I'm gonna give
Right.
it to you raw,
Right.
right? Because I'm
Right.
gonna tell you what you need to hear instead of what you want to hear.
Right.
But yeah, parents, get back involved in your child's recruiting. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Stop pretending to know everything,
Right.
and do your research.
All right. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation, and I'll see y'all next week.
All right. Thank you, guys.